What's up, y'all? Welcome to Watchworthy. It's your co-host, Brother Ash.
I'm Miss Chris D.
Today's episode, we're going to be covering another Netflix documentary. This time it's not a series. This was a film called Untold, The Murder of Steve McNair. Now, for all my football fans out there, y'all should know who Steve McNair is. Apparently, some football fans don't even remember him passing away tragically in 2009. I was talking about it today, and somebody didn't even realize. So
yeah, I didn't know anything about him at all. I clearly am not a huge football fan, but to know about the records he set in his short time in the NFL, like you said, he passed away in 2009, and it was on a holiday at that, so I just feel like there was a lot going on.
Yeah.
And maybe at that time he wasn't as big as he was at the start of his career.
He passed when he was 36.
Yeah.
He famously was the first African-American MVP to NFL, so that's incredible. We take that for granted these days because there's a lot of black quarterbacks who have been candidates for MVP. A few have won in the past, but he was the first to do it, and that's something that I didn't know.
Yeah.
So Steve McNair's career wasn't super long. He didn't have like a Brett Favre type career, but he was very successful in the NFL. And he, was able to, reach some heights that a lot of guys can only dream of. So the documentary features guys like his old coach, his coach for the Titans, teammates, Nashville PD that we know was on the case, and it was interesting. And this is one of those sad cases where
he got caught slipping.
Young brother was gone too soon, but I'll let you get into it.
Yeah. So Steve Air McNair, as he was called in the NFL, was born on February 14th, 1973, so a Valentine's baby, in Mount Olive, Mississippi. So he was a country boy.
Mississippi.
And he was a multi-athlete. I love when we find out that NFL quarterbacks also ran track, also did baseball, so he was like a multi-athlete, and that was awesome to hear, but he ultimately clearly got drafted for football. And so in 1992, he attended Alcorn State University. That was a HBCU, and I love to hear about that because we don't know a lot about, NFL quarterbacks going to HBCUs these days.
It's not a lot.
I feel like people still kind of look down on HBCUs, especially in sports, and I don't know why when we have all this talent. So shout out to Alcorn and shout out to him, going to a HBCU. I think they even said that he got offer from a different school, but ultimately went there. So he had his choice, trust me. Yeah. He had his pick of the litter. And so by 1995, he was drafted by the NFL. Steve was drafted in the first round as the third pick to the Houston Oilers. And
Red flag.
What? Red
flag, like that should let you know how good he was.
Oh, yes,
to be in 1995, to be the third overall pick, a black quarterback from an HBCU. It's not like he was setting records at Penn State or Alabama. Even the coaches said they had to they couldn't even get film on Alcorn State. They had to actually physically go to the game. So
you're right. That is a red flag that we don't often see that kind of talent from HBCUs as the first round pick in the draft, definitely. And so he went to the Houston Oilers, and his coach was Coach Jeff Fisher. So in 1999, they didn't talk much about 95 to 99. So I guess the Houston Oilers weren't anything to brag about in those years. But by 1999, the Oilers moved to Nashville, Tennessee. And that's when they rebranded as the Titans. So I didn't even know that. When he was first drafted, I was like, brother, who's the Houston Oilers? He's like, they were rebranded as the Titans.
Yeah.
So that move and that rebrand, it was hard for the team too. Imagine first of all, the little city of Nashville, they kept painting it as this little country music town. They never really had a big sports team like that before. And so, they had to get adjusted to the city. The city had to get adjusted to them. But ultimately, they did win that first home game in the new stadium. So that was groundbreaking. I can't imagine being there during that time, 99, we just, brought this new team to this city in this new stadium, and they did it and they won. So that was great to hear.
That's incredible, because sometimes when teams move like that, they don't really have the same success that they was, you know what I'm saying? So it was kind of interesting that things turned around for them the way they did.
Absolutely. And put a red flag, because why was everybody sleep on Nashville? You know how much talent has come from Nashville?
Yeah, but it just wasn't...
Not known for football, I guess.
Yeah, Nashville is Music City, and not Music City
Not like Motown.
It was like country,
Yeah.
you know, like
Dolly Parton.
Dolly Parton, Elvis. So
Yeah.
in the 90s, those people were still important, but they weren't the happening people in pop culture. You feel me? So
Absolutely.
Nashville was respected, but not the place that people were going to vacation.
So things started to heat up for the Titans that season. Like I said, it's their first season in the new stadium. So they started winning, y'all, like 5 home games, 6 home games, 7 home games. Then the city started getting excited, like, oh yeah, we love the Titans. Oh, y'all love the Titans now, huh? So they were doing well. And by 2000, the end of the 99-2000 season, they had that Music City Miracle against the Bills during the playoffs. And they talked about how they didn't think they were going to win, and they pushed past the Bills. So they were definitely the underdog. They were having a hell of a season, and they made it all the way to the Super Bowl. So the 2000 Super Bowl, even the year itself was just like, it's the new millennia. So everybody was just not expecting the Titans of all teams to go to the Super Bowl. It was the Rams versus the Titans. And they said in the documentary, people barely knew who Steve McNair was. I can name, Jordan Love or Aaron Rodgers, but I couldn't name Steve McNair back then. People barely knew who he was.
The NFL is big as it's ever been, though. So, like, you got to think, like, this is a brand new team. Like, you're somebody who watches football, but not, like, closely. Like, you're not, scouting guys to see who might be the highest pick next year. So, if they're not in your face like Patrick Mahomes, even the guys at that time wasn't seeing as much TV as, athletes today
actually,
see.
Sometimes when we play, I ask, like, babe, who's playing? He'll say, oh, the Rams. I'm like, who do I know on this team? If you could just name one player, then I'll be good. But some teams, I don't know anybody at all.
Nobody knew anybody on the Titans.
No.
Well, probably the most famous Titan at that time was probably Eddie George, the running back. But this documentary wasn't about him.
It was not about him. So, ultimately, they were like, okay, it's just another game. Like, don't freak out. They quickly learned it was not just another game. It's the freaking Super Bowl. So they were given a run for their money. And so by the fourth quarter, it's 23 Rams, 16 Titans. And people are thinking, they don't have a chance. And they didn't. They lost, but they only lost by 1 yard. They showed the replay. Babe, it was tough. They got 16 points, but it was tough getting there.
Yeah, but it's not like they got 16 points and the Rams got 42. It was 23-16. That's a close game.
Yes, it was.
People may not have thought that they belonged in that game, but they made it clear that they was the other best team in the NFL. Rams was first, they was second.
So it was really sad to see them literally lose by 1 yard. Like, they showed the footage of him, like, stretching out the football to the end zone.
It reminded me of Friday Night Lights.
Yeah, it did not make the cut. And so Steve, he felt that. He took a moment. He took a knee at the end of that game. Everybody else was trying to, shake hands. He was like, nah, I'm taking a knee. Him and the coach, Jeff Fisher, had a moment. They asked him, what did he say? At the time, they asked him what he said. And back in the 90s, he was like, that was between player and coach.
I love that.
So that was respect to him.
I love that.
But then later in the documentary in 2024, he was like, oh, all I said to him was like, I love you, man. And he said, I love you too.
The media is so annoying.
Yeah, always sticking the microphone. What did you say to him?
What did you say?
Let's get a quote.
None of your fucking business.
Especially, we just talked about last episode, John Bonet. This is still the 90s, so they getting on my nerves. But they had that moment and they were on their way. And the team really didn't see it as we lost the Super Bowl. They saw it as we almost won. The guy in the documentary pointed out, like, they even mentioned it in a movie. When they went back home to Nashville, they had a parade, even though they lost. So I'm glad that Steve McNair got to experience that Super Bowl. But ultimately, I don't think he ever won any Super Bowls. But he did have that experience to go, at least. And so Steve transferred after that. He's moved over to the Baltimore Ravens, and he was still like living in Tennessee but playing for the Ravens, and that's kind of how he ended his career. So the Titans players, we learned, would often hang out at the Dave & Buster's. Red flag. Because that's the only place to hang out in Nashville, Tennessee.
They got drinks, they got games.
You are a multi-million-dollar football player, but you're still hanging out at the local Dave & Buster's.
That's lit. You probably I would go crazy.
all drinks on me, because those drinks are like $5. And of course, they're players on and off the field, they were hollering at the waitresses. So that's where Steve met a young woman named Jenny. When I say young, he was 36 and she was 20.
Ooh, red flag.
Yeah, so you need to, if you're going to have a side piece, at least have it around your own age, maybe.
You could always, not have a side piece.
Yeah, just don't have a side piece. Because at this point, it's 2009. Steve got married in 97. He was married for a grip. He was married for 12 years at the time of his murder.
Met his wife in college,
Yeah,
too.
met his wife in college, all that. So it's just like, ugh, cringy. Like, you hate to see it.
Happens all the time.
It really does with these athletes. And so, not only that, but he had kids. He had kids from a first woman and his current wife. So he had multiple kids. So I don't know why you having side pieces at Dave & Buster's, but I digress. So after that, we also learned that Jenny, she had a backstory. She was currently living with her ex-boyfriend. Red flag.
Red flag.
I don't care if my name is still on the lease for another 6 months. Get me out of here. But that's that kind of dependency that she clearly had.
And what's fucked up is the boyfriend was a Titans fan.
Yeah, he is still alive today, and he was in the documentary, and he was like, man, I couldn't believe when she started dating Steve while we were still living together. He was my favorite player. So imagine that slap in the face. Like, ugh. I couldn't even imagine.
Wow.
Yeah. So, it just was messy because he's still married. She's living with her ex-boyfriend. There clearly is an age difference. And they said, judging from her text messages, it clearly was a relationship where she was basically just always asking Steve for money. It was so sad, y'all. It was so embarrassing. It was like, oh, I'm so stressed out this week. Can I get some more money? Like, damn, if you're going to have a sugar daddy, like, at least give him some sugar. I don't know what the nature of the relationship was.
I think that
they were fucking.
I don't see why he would just be giving her money. Like
But why would he be giving her that much money? Like,
do you understand how much money an NFL quarterback makes?
But do you understand he had a family and bills and should have prioritized that?
Well, do you understand that this is the whole problem with having a side piece and being rich? Because like, if you don't give her money when she asks, she's just gonna go to somebody with the text messages or whatever.
It was a mess.
Like, this is why you don't mess with girls that have nothing to lose if you have a family, a career, businesses. Because now this little waitress at Dave & Buster's has all this leverage over you, and you find yourself writing check after check to her. So
so I think that their relationship was more just like fun natured. It wasn't anything serious in my opinion, because they mentioned that Steve actually had other side pieces as well. So
I don't think that they was going to get married, but they were definitely having sex. Like he wasn't.
I know that, but I feel like they called her a girlfriend, and I don't know if she was necessarily a girlfriend or just a side chick. But she probably felt like she was entitled to a few things, and so imagine her surprise when she found out he had other side pieces. But anyways, the thing is, nobody knew about her because she was a side chick. So when Steve McNair was found murdered in his secret condo on July 4th, 2009, with another body, she was just an unidentified female at that point. She did not have a name. They didn't know what had happened. They didn't know what occurred. When they started out the documentary with that. So I was running through scenarios like, oh, I wonder who could have killed them. Like, killed them both. And I automatically kind of felt like she must have been a side piece. Because everybody, even his friends, was like, the scene looked weird. Like, what was he doing with this girl there? So, yeah. Surprise, surprise. He had a secret condo and a secret side piece.
Yeah, so the landlord knew that Steve wanted to have this place just to kind of, hang out, to chill, to be somewhere where people probably didn't even know Steve McNair was living up in that joint.
But he was ultimately the first person of interest, Wayne McNeely, because he is the one who found the body. And he, instead of calling 911, I hate when people do this. I understand, like, when you come across a body, you're scared, you don't know what to do. I might even call my mom first, but you should really call 911 first.
No, you should. No, don't call your mom first. You should
call 911 first.
Yeah,
yes.
Please
I
don't
agree
ever,
with you. I agree with you. But Wayne did not. He actually walked in to hang out with Steve, which I'm like, if you don't see him, red flag.
This is a red flag for me, because I was trying to get to this to set up the scene for y'all. Wayne was his landlord, all right? And he was just coming in like he was a roommate. He went to the fridge, he grabbed the beer, and then he noticed that, oh, Steve's not asleep. he is dead and this girl on the floor is also dead.
Well,
that was fishy to me.
Yes, that's why he became a person of interest, because he was the one to find the body. And instead of calling 911 automatically, he called Robert Gaddy. And like you said, he was a landlord, but we have to think about the nature of this condo. He knew that, quote, Steve had an itch to scratch. So maybe he was getting some pussy up in this little condo too. We don't know.
Yeah, that's what like some people do when they have like well-off friends. Like they know, like, all right,
I can walk in here
the party spot. If I need to bring
and
a piece of ass here, then I got the extra key. Like that's how they was living.
Yeah,
that's how they was living. Steve had the money, and his friend Gaddy, he went. I'm not gonna tell you what he went by because I ain't calling a grown ass man what his nickname is. But Robert Gaddy used to play with Steve at Alcorn State, and a lot of people thought he was his bodyguard because everywhere you seen Steve, you seen Gaddy, and he was clearly the friend that, you know, didn't go pro, but was kind of like riding off his coattails.
Red flag.
Now he claims that you know they was good friends, and I'm not saying that they wasn't, but you see this happen all the time. And you know, once guys turn professional, I think of guys like John Morant, who, you know, you see John Morant hanging out with his friends from back home.
I don't know what he's doing.
It's nothing wrong with that. You should keep connections with your friends, but like as long as they aren't a part of the problem or enabling you. So this is where we kind of start to see like Robert in a different light, because he was like, you know, really sad about the whole thing during the whole documentary. So Gaddy was the one that called 911. That was a good thing that's a green flag for him.
Yes.
Right? Somebody had to do it. The police learned, though, that Steve and Gaddy, Robert Gaddy, had recently had an argument, a falling out over $13,000. It was a business venture that they was both in on, and apparently they had a real bad argument, a falling out recently before the murder about all of this.
Red flag. 13. He was very specific. It was over $13,000.
Yeah.
But I guess the red flag for me is like, I hate when people die and they're like, oh, didn't you just text them that you hate their guts yesterday? Yes, but I didn't know they were gonna die. Like,
now, Robert was very, very adamant about making sure that we knew as viewers that he was just destroyed.
He was like, I would never kill my friend over $13,000.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that was his thing. Like, yeah, we was arguing, but over $13,000, I would never.
Yeah.
And he also was like, damn, like, every time he mentioned if we wasn't cool, maybe I could have been there to stop it, he started getting emotional. So he made it clear that he understood people was looking at him because of what happened.
Yeah.
So then they started to learn more about Jenny. First of all, this girl named not even Jenny.
Red flag. I'm sorry.
She's really from Iran, right? And her real name was Sahel Jenny Kazemi. I don't even know if Jenny was her middle name, if Jenny is short for her actual middle name.
I don't want to say red flag to like her name being Jenny, because I know African people who are like, my name is Okitutabita Papa, but I go by Papa. You know, like.
Look, I'm going to say a red flag.
But Jenny is not even close to Sahil, so I don't know.
Of when niggas end up in these type of situations and you got a whole nother government name, but people are calling you Jenny, that is one thing if
You're
Jenny,
something to hide.
If Jenny is short for something.
Yeah.
But like if you just going by this name and your other name is this, it's kind of fishy. And I was right for having that feeling, because apparently old girl had a history. Like I said, she was from Iran. That doesn't mean anything at all. That's not where the history comes from. She migrated to Florida and had all type of issues coming up in school. She was, you know, known for having episodes and breakdowns and being very emotional.
Red flag, because in her defense, which, I mean, I shouldn't be defending her, but they did mention that like her parents were killed in Iran or something. So maybe she did have a tough upbringing.
Yeah, so she had a very, you know, rough life. It led her to be dependent on men.
Yeah.
She moved with her boyfriend to Tennessee, and they even said that she wasn't even stable until they met. Like her boyfriend
I hate that
she moved with originally kind of kept her grounded, you know, kept her
That's
from
the red flag.
going off the edge. And that's a red flag.
That's the red flag, because you're only 20.
And to be 20 years old and another 20-something year old is the reason why
you're even in a different state.
I'm like, you got to be able to regulate your own feelings, because if that's all it take, who's to say, what if he would have found one of the Titans cheerleaders? Now you're going batshit in fucking
And
Tennessee.
now while we're on this topic, I remember them saying in the documentary that once Jenny started dating Steve, she was skipping shifts at Dave & Buster's. She wasn't going to work. Yeah. Sis, that's not a life plan. That's not a game plan.
The life plan was to get in good with Steve enough to where he would take care of her. And, of course, she claimed that the divorce was going to be finalized.
Oh, yeah. Every side piece is like, he's going to get divorced any minute. Because they interviewed her coworkers and they said, like, yeah, they both actually did genuinely seem to be falling for each other. Yeah. There were pictures of them on TMZ together, meaning they were out in public together.
Yeah.
But still, I don't know.
So they, so obviously now the boyfriend became a person of interest, because they're like, he could easily be jealous of Steve. He admitted that he was jealous of Steve. But just so we could be clear, Jenny was doing her dirt too, because apparently she had relationships with other men who were, giving her money, whatever. So it wasn't, she was a bit of a gold digger, respectfully. Yeah. I hate to talk about the young lady. She isn't here anymore, but she, the text messages and her phone revealed that, she ended up purchasing a weapon from a guy who she had some type of relationship with. And they ended up,
we'll learn more.
She killed herself, and then she killed Steve McNair. And so the boyfriend was in the documentary, and like I said, like, he just is regretful of all of this, and he still refers to her as his first love.
Yeah, so in this documentary, they had her ex-boyfriend at the time, and he was like, listen, she was my first love, so I would do anything for her, but not kill. They was like, so what about this you said on MySpace? He was like, yes, I was very hurt, but I would not kill. So be careful what y'all post, because they definitely be looking at all of that, and the text messages and everything. And so apparently everything wasn't all roses for Steve and Jenny, right?
Yeah, nah. They had a situation where Steve was in the car with Jenny, I think like the night before.
It was 2 days before the murders.
And, Steve McNair is not the type of guy to get caught up with stuff like this. Yeah, he had his side pieces. Yeah,
But a DUI does not look good for a football player.
And if let's be honest, when you a black quarterback in the NFL, you got to act a certain way. So his friend basically said he felt like Steve had a moment where he was like, what am I doing here?
Thank God.
Getting pulled over with this girl. And this video footage of her, or apparently she called him all drunk, like, I'm pulled over, I need you to come save me. So
that's what I'm talking about.